Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this clown decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And in this video, I'm going to show you why effectively Generation Z are screwed. Largely because effectively Generation Z have been treated like children most of their life, and when they get to adulthood they feel like it's basically just a cliff edge, and now they don't know how to act like adults, and so want pretty much everything still provided to them, as if they're kids. Now you might think, what the hell am I talking about here? Well, I say in an awful lot of streams that, oh, on TikTok I said XYZ, or on TikTok I saw X, Y, or Z. And so a video like this was only going to be a matter of time, but I thought this was the best one to start on because it's actually a reaction video to a reaction video. So for context, this is the first video that sets everything off.
You can't say that. You can. You can. I did.
So this is a very, very small TikToker, a few hundred followers I think, called Red Star Education. I mean, already calling yourself Red Star Education, pretty obvious to me that you are some sort of socialist. I don't think anyone would call themselves Red Star without knowing the context of that, especially a Zoomer, because all they know really about communism is that it sounds nice and that they like red stars. But as you can see, the entire point here is, when you say the UK government and school system has failed students by not teaching them proper financial education. And I took issue with this, because I went through the UK government and school system, and yes, they don't give you financial education, quote unquote, whatever the hell that means. I got my financial education via my parents, via Google, via my good friend who is an accountant. And because I've done okay with myself having no official or formal, I suppose, financial education, I'm still doing pretty well for myself, so I decided to leave a comment. I don't have a proper TikTok account, hence I am user and a load of numbers, but I say it's really not hard to learn this yourself. Also, school made maths compulsory and most adults are proud of being bad at maths. And the same thing will happen with the financial education, which I absolutely believe. You know, I have formal education in Spanish. My Spanish is still muy mal dad, but having said that, it was still pretty important to learn a foreign language so that I have the basic skills to even start to think about learning another foreign language. And I've ended up learning a tiny bit of Welsh, some Russian since. I mean, I'm not very good at any of them, and it's unfortunate because the whole world speaks English, so I don't feel a need to, but the basic skills are there, and that's really what school's all about. Learning the very basic skills. And when it comes to finances, well, realistically, because the financial system can change at any point, really what's the advantage of learning it in detail the way that people like this want? I mean, I can understand it for Americans, that's a bit different because they have to obviously do their own tax returns, but over in Britain, basically the government just sends you a bill. They work it all out, so you don't really need to know anything, and if you do need to know it, there are easy ways to find out via Google, via solicitors if you end up running a business or buying a house. Me, for instance, I've recently bought a house. I have no idea how taxes worked on it. I don't need to know. I just need to be given a bill. And that's what I paid. The only people that do need to know it are mortgage brokers, mortgage advisors, solicitors, as I say, specialists in the field. And they all had to learn maths as a basic so they could understand the basic skills to get into learning the tax code. This is the thing, you got to learn it brick by brick, and then when you're an adult, you can literally learn anything. Most of my history education is self-taught, for God's sake, and that's all I'm trying to say here. You can self-teach. But anyway, Red Star Education took this comment quite badly and decided to make a reaction TikTok to it, and this is what made me want to make the video, so prepare for me to talk an awful lot about a 1-minute video. Take it away, Red Star.
I actually completely disagree with this comment. It doesn't happen often that I completely disagree, but I do this time.
Well, of course you do. You're not a very clever person. I mean, genuinely, I'd say no offence, but I am meaning to be a little offensive. You're not a very clever person if effectively your entire TikTok, and I do mean this, pretty much the entire TikTok is, oh, I don't learn things I want to learn from school. It is therefore other people's responsibility to spoon feed it to me. And this is my main concern with Generation Z. No, it isn't. It's your responsibility to put your own life on track and learn what you need to learn. It's no one else's.
In response to your first point, it's really not hard, just learn it yourself. Number one, you're kind of missing the point.
No, I'm not missing the point. You literally just want everything that you think you need to learn spoon-fed to you without even a second thought about it. I mean, this is the funny thing. Rather than actually learning about financial education or finances, if that's what you want to do, you're on TikTok complaining that no one is coming to you and teaching it you, which is really stupid, which is why I said Google it, but this is what she had to say about that.
And number two, if it was so easy, then everyone would have just done that.
Now, this is a point I find really, really funny. No, people don't do easy things. It's really weird. I honestly find it really weird. I suppose the difficult part of financial education is, I mean, I keep calling it that. Really, it's understanding the tax system. That's what she's complaining about, is learning the tax system and learning to budget. There's so many resources on Google to actually go through. I think this is the part where people just shut down. They actually go to one if they actually choose one, and then it's all too complicated for them, or they can't be bothered reading it. They're just like, oh, I'll make it up as I go along. But even then, you don't really need an expert to tell you budgeting. Try and get more of an income than expenses. I've never really had formal education, but I know that's the base of doing it. And even on TikTok, there's loads of people giving you really good advice on, like, oh, try and stick to a 20-20-60 rule, or something like that, where essentially 60% of your budget goes on necessities such as, housing, food, transport, whatever. Try and save 20% of your paycheck, and then the other 20% of your paycheck is to have some fun with. Like, that alone, that alone takes 2 minutes, and you can literally search on Google and TikTok to find out. You don't need the government or the school to let you know that this is an idea of budgeting. But this is the other problem. When it comes to budgeting, it's completely different depending on who you are and what your income is and what other things you have to think about. Not everyone, say, is a carer. Carers are going to have to think about what money am I going to put aside for the person I'm caring for. That goes into the necessities, I assume. But, is that going to eat into my savings? Should I go to McDonald's less? But then, there's other popular TikTok accounts. My favourite one is called Caleb Hammer. He will literally just get Americans on and stress about their finances. Like, we're talking, like, one I saw today was a woman saying, oh, I'm thinking about going back to college just to pause my student loan payments. And he says, well, how much is your student loan at the moment? She says, 40,000. And he's having to explain to her, sure, you can go back to college for 3 more years and get out a bigger loan, but then when you get out, you're going to be having to pay like double or triple what you're paying now to your student loan repayment. So it's stupid. But this is the thing. This is why you need family support network to help you teach this. I mean, okay, if you don't have that, what do you do? As I say, Google. TikTok experts are even better than nothing. And yet you're saying the government has to go through everyone and give them, I don't know, a day's course in financial education? I'm telling you now, that's not going to be very useful. I mean, this is why they've set up citizen support, because that's not citizens advice it's called, because that's not a highly used part of the government. And if it was, then maybe you'd have a point. Maybe we do literally just need to educate people to budget. But people who can't budget, it's actually a minority of the UK, or at least they can't budget to a point where it gets fatal and they go in a spiral of debt. That happens very rarely to people. So I guess my final point is, everyone else seems to be managing to do it. Why can't you?
Also, why is it people's responsibility to go and find this stuff out?
It was this line alone that made me want to make this video. It's blown my mind that this is an unironic stance from Zoomers. It's actually blown my mind, and I'm not even that surprised by it. It's more how blazonly she says, why is it people's responsibility to take control of their own lives and handle their own process of learning and education, when, as I said in this video, most of my history education is self-taught. Pretty much all of my economics education is self-taught, apart from 1 year I did at school, and bits and pieces I learned in my geology degree. I learned about rocks for my degree. It's given me a very, very good insight into the prehistory of planet Earth. It's given me a very good inward look into climate change and things like that. And they were all the best parts of education. But do you know what else university taught me? And it's still to this day, I have no idea why. Well, no, I do know why. But I don't know why it's just become a normal part of university course. Is that I learned how to write a CV and get a job. That should not be a part of university education. But the reason it is part of university education is because university are hugely incentivised to get as many people as soon as they graduate out of uni into a job, because that looks very good for their statistics, and they can advertise it. 90% of our students go straight into a job. And, I got out of uni and didn't get a job because I didn't really know what to do. And I had a very cynical look at, why am I being patronised into being taught how to write about myself? When in the end, I'm sure I've said this story before, but pretty much everyone on my course, when we had to write a CV to get marked, pretty much everyone just got, I think there were a couple of guys in our course whose dads were literally hiring managers, and people just effectively got templates off them and, tried to apply it to themselves. And that's what I was doing before I went to uni anyway, before I applied for a summer job. And it kind of just and I did that off my parents basically giving me a boot up the backside to try and do that, and that's how I learned. I Googled it and got my sister to help, and yeah, again, not everyone has a sister who works in HR. But this is why the first thing I said was Google. And also, pretty much everyone has parents, by the way. If you don't, it's a very small number of people that don't have parents, but your parents will know how to get a job. Because they will have had a job to raise you, to afford you. And they will know how to budget and do all this. Like, one of the best people to go to for budgeting and all this advice is your parents. And how did they learn? And they didn't even have Google. They didn't learn it from school, did they?
You're putting fresh 18-year-olds out into the world and saying just go and learn it.
Yes, 18-year-olds are adults. They should be able to understand how to learn these different aspects of life. An 18-year-old will have passed GCSE maths, so they should be able to know how to make an equation bigger on one side than the other.
But learn what? How? From where?
Well, that entirely depends on the 18-year-old's problem. And as I said many times, every 18-year-old has a smartphone. Google.
How do you know it's a trusted source?
How do you know it's a trusted source? I don't know, use your intuition? How many websites do you think are out there trying to give people bad budgeting advice? I mean, obviously there will be some out there, but if it says, give me money, I will teach you how to budget, then my God, you probably unironically need that anyway, because of how bad your common sense is. But secondly, they're not trying to write a paper or, discern what's propaganda and what's not. They're trying to understand, do I need to get rid of this $3,000 bill on candles or not? And I know that's a bit of a niche reference to this particular meme, but this is how an awful lot of conversations with Zoomers when it comes to budgeting go. How often do you go to Costa or Starbucks? The answer, they'll always say, oh, not that much, and then it will always be more than twice a week. And that alone saves them probably £20 just by not going to Starbucks and Costa. I've said it every time, but I saved probably about 10% of my deposits just by stopping myself from buying takeaways every week. It goes a long way. And it shouldn't take the government telling you stop buying takeaways to get you to understand how that is good for your budget.
It's the government's responsibility to prepare people for their future.
Yes, that's why you went to school and why maths and English were foundational, so that you could understand how to actually go out and ask the correct questions in the world and, read up on these things. And again, when it comes to budgeting, it's basic maths. It's basic addition and subtraction. How much do I earn a month? How much are my average expenses a month? Goodness knows what's going to happen in the future, so I better put some money aside as well. Right, now, does the equation equal 0? Oh, it's above 0. That's more to put away then, or treat myself with. Basically, I'm putting budgeting down to everyone actually knows how to do it. A lot of Zoomers are just too lazy to take it seriously because they've had so much in their life just given to them. And I definitely came under this, by the way. I'm not saying I am free from this, but looking back 10 years, my God, I reckon I would have had a similar outlook on life to budgeting than this. But no, as soon as you start taking it seriously, you can just relax, assuming nothing goes completely wrong in your life.
I also disagree that if it was compulsory, no one would learn it. People don't like to learn maths because the number one question people ask is, why am I learning this?
Cool, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. In fact, budgeting is still part of the realistic maths problems that you get. John bought 10 melons at 20 pence each. How much did he spend? That part of that comes in within budgeting. In fact, no, I even remember questions that were like, oh, Johnny has £20, 50 pence, and he wants to buy, or what's the maximum amount of apples he can buy if they're 15 pence each? And this is the school giving you the skills to actually budget. It's up to yourself to understand how to actually apply these skills. If you literally have to be spoon-fed, right, here are the skills you've been taught, here is how you should apply them, I don't understand how you're functioning as a human being. And then if you care about some specifics, I don't know, if you run a business on Etsy or something like that and you end up with a massive amount of capital gains, Google capital gains tax. And if you don't know what that is, typically if the government does look into your business, they won't actually fine you. They will just give you a bill for the tax you've not paid, especially if it's within 4 years. The problem, obviously, we're having at the moment with Angela Rayner, who, by the way, is an MP we can probably assume does understand the tax system better than most other people, although she wasn't an MP at the time, not that it matters. She was a trade unionist at the time, so she should still know this, is that she actually tried to effectively claim that she was living at the house that she sold, and because of that, technically, she doesn't have to pay capital gains, but because it was actually a property that people are saying she wasn't living at, it would be a capital gain that needs to be taxed. And yeah, but how many people are going to need to actually know that? How many people are going to be like Angela Rayner, buy a council house, live elsewhere, and then sell it? Not many people. So it's pointless doing it at school. How many people are going to need to understand the basics of addition and subtraction? Pretty much everybody. That's why you learn it. And okay, you can go further and say, oh, why at GCSE maths are we learning about Pythagoras' theorem and things like that? Well, that is to help you solve abstract problems. It's to help you think abstractly, to understand a problem not just in a literal sense, but a hypothetical and abstract sense. This helps you problem solve, this develops your intellectual skills, this, I'll just be repeating myself at this point, it's problem solving skills, basically. That is why you are learning it. Just because you struggle to understand how it applies, doesn't mean it's not applicable. This is why I think it's stupid that, she's trying to come in with the apologia of course people are going to be proud of not understanding maths properly, because we don't need to understand maths properly. And at the same time she says, why don't I understand finance? Probably because you didn't take maths seriously.
When is it going to be relevant?
I mean, that's just perfect, isn't it? When is maths going to be relevant? I don't know. Maybe when you want to understand finance and budgeting.
We've taught thousands of young people and not once has someone said, but why is this relevant? Why do I even need to learn it?
Are you kidding me? Everyone asks that. It's a meme at this point. People were even asking why they need to be tested on their times table because everyone's going to have a calculator. Everyone says it. And the reason you need to know it is because it effectively, you're going to a gym for your brain at school, especially when it comes to maths. I used to be incredibly quick at maths problems because I used to do them all the time at school. I used to do loads for homework. I even did the extra homework all the time because I was that quick and I enjoyed it. There's no way I could do that now because I don't use my maths muscles as much as I used to. Sometimes I play online countdown games just to help me do maths problem solving, and that's just for fun. But then that's actually useful for when I'm at work because I work an awful lot with big numbers and data. And being quick at, estimating and coming up with quick solutions via the maths is really helpful because I need to make mathematical formulas for my job. And genuinely playing Countdown has helped with that. But this is exactly what you're doing at school. You're training your muscle in your brain, because it's actually a really good metaphor for it, because then, okay, you won't use Pythagoras' theorem for 5 years or something, but then you never know. You might need to use similar concepts to solve a problem, and your brain's been trained to do that, at least to some degree. That's why it's important. But being given a list of what each tax does and how much it is at the moment and how it might affect you in the future, you're just rote learning at that point, and that's not education. People probably wouldn't even improve their memory from doing that because they'll do the test once and then forget about what tax does what again. This is why I say people will forget, because they will. But all learning what different tax will do will help people's memory a bit. Okay, maybe there's some use in that, but really you want to build the parts of the brain that build on understanding language, understanding abstract concepts, learning the scientific method if you're doing something like chemistry and physics, because that's when you get more specialist. When you're younger, effectively what science is understanding the world around you. How do forces work? How does energy work? How do some chemicals react? How does bread go mouldy? How do plants work? And this is just to help you understand the world around you, and that is actually quite important for the basic building blocks of life. When kids are playing sports and things like that, they might wonder, why does a ball go so far and why does my foot hurt when I kick it incorrectly? And that's how you'll learn it. But then that's the building blocks to go into the specialisation of other sciences, such as like I did in geology, because all of that was a bit of biology, an awful lot of physics and an awful lot of chemistry. However, when it comes to finances, to become an accountant, one degree they actually really like is chemistry. That doesn't give you great building blocks for understanding how the financial system works, but what it does do is make sure that you are very precise in your language, because chemists are very well known for having to be precise in what they write down. What I'm basically trying to get across here is that actually understanding the financial system, that is basically only for specialists. I don't understand how my house was taxed. I don't need to, I just need to pay it. But for budgeting, I didn't need someone to come to me and say it's this much for your food, it should be this much for your house. No, all I have done is try to cut costs where I can when I need to, and make savings elsewhere, and I'm ending up above board every month. And that's it. And another way to do that is to, get better jobs and things like that, which people do. You do not need the government to come to you at 18, 19, 20, 21 and say, right, the way you budget is that you get more income than expenses. You simply don't need the government to do that. That is just common sense. But this is how much... I mean, you might be wondering, why am I going on about this so much? This is the mindset of the Zoomer, is why. They think that even something that simple and with that little common sense needs to be put forward by the government. It's either that or something completely pointless needs to replace maths at school. It's crazy, despite the fact maths is needed to understand this.
It's the opposite. It's, oh my God, finally we're learning about it. It's...
Again, just from the experience in my life and people I know, we got to uni, and I talked to my housemates, flatmates about this, as we were looking for jobs and things like that. That's when we all started talking to each other about finances and how do we budget properly and how am I going to afford a house and things like that. And that, again, we all Googled, we all talked to each other, we all gave each other resources. Like, that's how good education is done. Via your brain coming to a point where it says, I need to ask this question, or I want to ask this question, and then finding out the answer yourself. And you say, well, how can you trust these sources? Well, your own intuition, but that's a different skill to financing. How do you know you can trust your school teacher? I know my geography teacher lied an awful lot to me about the Earth. That's one thing my geology degree did, taught me that geographers know nothing.
It's one thing being bad at Pythagoras, it's another thing not understanding the tax system.
This was another line that blew my mind. Again, why do we learn Pythagoras? So that we know you can actually understand abstract concepts. But not understanding the tax system? How many people in Britain do you think understand the tax system? I'm telling you now, Rishi Sunak was Chancellor of the Exchequer. He won't understand the tax system. Because Britain's tax system, especially since World War II, it's basically just been built upon, had different parts try to stuck onto different parts. We need about 4 separate departments just to understand the tax system. And do you think anyone in all 4 of those departments understands the whole tax system? No, but to, act in good faith, oh, well, should we understand the basics of taxes? You understand the basics of taxes just by working. You work, you get an income, the government takes some of it. What's VAT? Again, VAT was only something I learned properly when I did 1 year of economics, but did it really matter if I knew what it was or not? No, not really. Do I need to know that the government take 20% of sales on things that aren't luxury goods? No, not really. I can see the price, and that's the only information I really need. And as I say, I don't know how the taxes worked when I bought the house. I don't need to, I just need to pay the bill. Do I need to know fully what tax code I'm on? Well, if I'm really interested, I can Google it. But I'm not, so I just trust that my employer and the HR department there have done that part properly. In fact, when I moved, my girlfriend informed me that I should probably actually be on a different tax code because I moved from England to Wales. Well, guess what? We didn't know the answer, so we Googled it. And it turns out, no, I don't need to change it. And if it did need changing, and work hadn't properly changed it, I'd inform them, hey, I think it needs to change. Even if I didn't Google this, and we couldn't find it anywhere, we'd just ask the employer, and they'd check. I don't understand what situation you think you're going to be in the future, where you need a good understanding of the tax code, or the tax system, and the answer wasn't simply a few keystrokes away, or literally one person's expertise that you probably know away. I don't get this. I don't get what you actually want the government to teach. Because if it is just a long list of how the tax system works, you're going to bore kids out of their brain. Especially me. I would not have been into maths if it was all taught through how the UK tax system works. In fact, it probably would have made me a full-blown ANCAP rather than just a relative libertarian.
And that's why we're here, to make learning about finances and the stuff you actually need to know easy.
I've just properly listened to that last part. It's finally all actually slotted in together. And maybe I've been too harsh on the Zoomers here. I think I finally actually understand why she is so insistent on people understanding financial education. So I decided to have a quick look at some of her other videos, and this is one that I have found.
Who taught you how to be good with money?
Google, a bit of TikTok, my parents, my good friend John from the Wellington Project. Lots of people.
We are the UK's leading experts on financial education.
See, it's all come into place now, hasn't it? We need the entirety of the UK to get a good financial education. Oh, we happen to provide exactly that, so it's all fitting into place. I understand it. You're trying to say that you're trying to get Zoomers effectively to say we demand financial education so that you can make money. Like this is the definition of a grift, by the way.
We're trusted by some of the best organisations. Some are so good that we're not actually allowed to talk about it.
See, the weird thing with saying, oh, we work with some of the best institutions, and okay, you might have NDAs with some of them, but you'd at least give one example. You'd at least give some sort of example to say, this is who we work with, so we know that you are trustworthy. But the fact you're saying, oh, we work with so many good ones, but we can't talk about it, no, I don't believe you. I think you're lying and a grifter.
And our sessions have revolutionised how people are taught financial education.
I guess, yeah, you have revolutionised it, but revolutions aren't necessarily a good thing. And I suppose if you've revolutionised it specifically on your TikTok, it's not widespread either. As I say, 183 followers for this account, it's not great. And by the way, this link that they have as well in their bio, God knows where that takes you. This takes you to some sort of, I don't know, weird news website. They make it out like this short link should send you to their financial education website, you know, somewhere where they can actually make money. Doesn't actually appear to do that. And in fact, from the looks of it, this news article isn't even in English. I don't understand why this is their short URL.
And we thought we'd share that info through TikTok.
If you're supposed to be giving out financial education via TikTok, you're not doing a very good job of it. Your entire brand, from what I can see so far, is just, we need the government to give us financial education. Well, if the government's doing it, how are you supposed to do it? And I know how you're supposed to do it. You're hoping that you end up on an advisory board in some way for this. Or you'll be outsourced by the government to make the financial education curriculum. I understand what you're trying to do. I just wouldn't telegraph it this obviously.
For realsies though, some of you really need to calm. We get so many comments about, well, I already understand. My mum taught me. It's just common sense. Just a little PSA. Not everyone has the privilege of having parents who understand finance.
Well, I mean, luckily I've already addressed this in advance. As I say, luckily everyone has Google. Again, we've had people in the Wellington Project Discord who are clearly struggling with money, and they simply ask for advice, and we give it them. Have a community of people that actually understand money. Like, honestly, it's the internet. Literally, it's an unlimited resource for education and answers to your questions. And I'm not being funny to you. That there's not going to be many people giving you bad financial advice out there. There's no... I mean, I say that. If people say, buy my course for £400 or something like that, probably not a good idea. That's probably a scam, because there are plenty of people who are fine with offering you general financial advice for free. There's literally a million blogs out there. And sure, these people are doing it on TikTok, but they're trying to feed off your envy of other people understanding budgeting better than you do, when that's going to end up making them money. And as I say, their long-term goal is probably to become a consultant for financial educators in some way. Best way to do that is say, government should do it. Oh boy, now we work for the government nationwide. Again, as I say, they're telegraphing it massively. This is why I'm just calling them grifters.
Not everyone has the privilege of common sense, especially when that knowledge isn't always common.
I mean, yeah, the tax system isn't common knowledge. In fact, it's very esoteric, and I don't think anyone actually understands it properly. But again, you don't need to understand the whole of the tax system to budget properly. And the vast majority of Brits budget properly.
Our videos are to educate people. Our videos are to help educate people who maybe can't afford to be educated.
Again, Google's free, but aside from that, again, I guess this truly is the actual viewpoint from this company. It's a bit like Marcus Rashford. Oh, we know that not everyone budgets well. I'm not saying they don't, but they are saying, oh, we're happy to give them the help they need on TikTok, give them some advice on TikTok. That I'd be absolutely fine with. But it's then the fact you're saying, oh, everyone needs this education and deserves this education for free via the government. Again, you just want to be outsourced by the government. You just want government money. You've made that plainly obvious now. But that's really... And you are literally riding off a Zoomer wave, I suppose, of the government should give me absolutely everything. Which, again, is a really, really weird thing to promote when, as I say, you are literally providing this stuff for free on TikTok. Why does the government have to get involved? But then, as I say, it's because it's a grift. It's because they want to be outsourced by it, etc., etc. I'm not going to repeat myself. Let's finish this off.
If you see one of our videos and you think, I already know that, good for you! But some people don't, so just keep scrolling.
Yep, sure, fine, but I didn't comment on a video like that. I commented on a video that said the education we're providing should be government funded, i.e. I want free government gibs. And that is what I had a problem with. So, there we go. Apparently, as it turns out, you are literally just a grifter. So, that was quite a twist. I didn't expect that at the end, but here we are. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a little adventure that I had on TikTok today. I suppose in the future, if I ever get replies like this, because I do comment a lot on TikTok, I don't see why we can't go through them again. If I see something on TikTok that really annoys me, I could turn this into a bit of a series of let's reply to idiots on TikTok. In fact, there's quite a few that I already know off the top of my head I would want to go through. So, I don't know, expect some things like this in the future. I mean, they're just like reply videos, so of course you're going to get reply videos. Anyway, that's everything I had for you today. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.